give the disclaimer that this is not about me. We didn't do these kinds of things described in this poem. I should say the curry chips were a little tin tub, aluminum foil tub of French fries, and with curry sauce on top. So it was Ireland's answer, the post-disco nightclub takeaway food response to Chinese restaurants showing up in Ireland in the 70s. So it was very common coming out of the disco on a Friday or Saturday night after 10 pints of Guinness to absorb some of that Guinness by having some curried chips and spice your mouth back up for whatever you were going to do after that. And so in this particular poem, it's hard to explain to an American audience, I suppose. Where I grew up in Monaghan is a little bit south of the border between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. And in this particular instance, a bunch of guys have gone to a disco in Enniskillen, which is about 30 miles north. So they've crossed the border into Enniskillen. They're coming home from the nightclub, they're all 30 miles. They have to cross this border, soldier-man border. And they decide in this town where they have to cross the border, it's mentioned in the poem, the town is called Achnacoy. They decide that they need some curried chips. And there's a van, a chippy van, that sells curried chips there. And this results in the following encounter. It's also a sonnet, but not that matters. You will not hear it. You kind of have to do things to see it. And it's a fable. And it's about an act of violence that needed to be punished, I think. The RUC show up, a little cameo, and the RUC are the Royal Ulster Constabulary, the police force in Northern Ireland that are now called the Northern Ireland Police Force since 1998. But back when this happened, had a different name. The curried chip and the forks. Driving home from a disco in Enniskillen, we stopped at a van in Achnacoy for a feed of curried chip. There's just one plastic fork supplied with each of the 2 silver dishes of steaming chips. And there's 5 of us. So you can imagine our hostility at the chipper's refusal to fork over some extras, be a civil pal, before we shoulder his greasy fuck of a van upside down, him inside, let the hot fat sear his cheap ass. Serves him right, we told the RUC when they lit us with their dazzling light. A few free plastic fucking forks, and we'd be home in Monaghan by now. He'll show more respect, the mean bastard, next time the likes of us darken his van. Feel free to be scared of me now. So I can go in different directions. I can keep going with this book, the violent book, the scary book, or move to something kinder and gentler. Let's see. I'll read one more poem from this that I think is important to an American audience. It's called Safe Haven, and it's a good example of how poems come from that confluence or coincidence of events. Here it's the mid-90s. The corpses of thousands of Bosniaks have just been unearthed in the city of Srebrenica, while in another totally unrelated story, an Atlantic cliff on the west coast of Ireland where unchristened babies were very unceremoniously buried in the mid-1800s for the first time is being consecrated as holy ground so that they can get a good Christian burial. And meanwhile in Boston where I'm living, there's a big, what was called the Big Dig going on, and that was a big engineering event. It lasted about 8 years to suppress the central highway going through the city. And during that big dig, on the day that I wrote this poem, the dig had been suspended for a day. to honour and to reinter the bones of unearthed mid-19th century Irish famine victims that had been buried on an island off the coast of Boston, where they were kept in quarantine for a while. So, and finally, if this is not enough, you got three things kind of working here. I was putting in a driveway in front of my house, so I'm digging a driveway with a pickaxe. Came across some old forts, so that kind of informs the poem as well. I think what I'm trying to get at in this poem is that remembering, and we talked a fair bit about this yesterday, remembering one's heritage may or may not be as important as forgetting sometimes your heritage. I don't know why, so that new waves of immigrants perhaps are not subjected to the recurrent waves of prejudice and intolerance. So I think it's important to forget as much as it is to remember something. Safe haven. The things you find when you drive a pick beneath the lawn's thick turf and prise it off. A rusted nest of tools, a boot's uppers, a brittle cloth, and an old fork, its tines and nape still parallel and arched. And then again, the things you're glad you don't. Earth movers turn up bones and stall the big dig in what could be Srebrenica. But there's no mother here to claim a tibia in a high top is her son's and point to a hole in the skull. Or Balnakill, this fume of rain, the same that helped the sods take, but no one's here with a chrismed child in a wooden box, leaning into a headland wind. Here, ghosts dream they wake from quarantine sleep to this. A choice view of Boston, too late or too soon for asylum, but for long enough to glimpse that other boat from China or from Haiti, anchored off Deer Island. Wasn't it there, their ship dumped keep? And there too, a young man snatched from dream stirs in a coop. Tomorrow we'll dig again, a new highway put underground to relieve congestion. And I'll fling gravel where the sod was, tell a neighbour what I'd found. Shape a narrative as we savour the sound, the scrape, then racket of each crushed stone sent off the shovel and finding a place to rest.